Hello, hello. I'm just going to assume this is working. Hello, everybody. Okay, we're going to try to do something this morning. Just go through maybe a couple of flat earth posters, but I want to talk about the coffee cup because there's a story behind it. It's kind of funny, or irritating and funny at the same time. I got this at the Atlantic Undergrad Physics in Astronomy Conference. It was a conference set aside for just undergrad astronomy students to go and do like 15-minute talks and to listen to other speakers. And the conference, this is from, okay, I'm setting something up for later. Okay. I was at another university called UND, which is in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and it's about 5 or 6 hours away from this. Okay. The story starts a few weeks before the conference. The president of our physics society wanted to have a vote on a couple things. One, there was a non-physics person going, or whether to allow her go and her partner go, because her partner's family lived in Halifax. And so we voted yes. And because they're both, one of them was good friends with pretty much everybody. And the other one was where to stay. And we voted to stay at the more expensive hotel near downtown Halifax instead of out on the Bedford Basin. So let's go back. This conference is usually held the first weekend of February. So we'll go to the Thursday night before then. I'm trying to get my overheads done. I actually gave a small one with 15-minute talks at this conference. And I was getting my overheads together, packing stuff all night, and there were several cars going. There was a total of 16 people that went from our university, which is a fairly large group. The person who picked me up drove me to the university, just like a block away, but it's like suitcase and stuff, so for this case, got to drive. And he was part of what they call the partiers. The partiers actually left early in the morning and got there fairly ahead of everybody. One person lost their wallet the night before. So it took them about 3 hours to figure out who was going to drive the rental car, because that person was supposed to drive the rental car. And then they put me in the back seat of the rental car because I even told them I had motion sickness. He said, "Oh, whatever." Okay, me and the president of the Physics Society at the time didn't get along. She made up stuff about me because I was having problems academically. She goes, "Well, the only reason he got through high school was because they had no child left behind because he lived so close to the border." Now, I lived on the Canadian side of the border, and the rules for academia was the same for like elementary, high school, middle school, and high school was the same. I don't know how they broke it up in other schools, but like elementary school was either grade 1 to 6 or grade 1 to 5. They changed it to grade 1 to 5 for all our elementary schools in our area. Then there was the middle school, which is 6, 7, and 8, and then there was high school for the rest of the grades. I don't know how they did in the rest of the province, but there were times I figured out why I was having problems, but we'll skip over that. But and then when we got to the conference, we showed up basically on time for the keynote talk, but we didn't know it was 45 minutes delayed because we weren't at the conference, we were at the hotel. We said, "Oh well, we're just going to go shopping," and we went shopping. We could have still seen the talk. And after the talk, there was like a meet and greet. I actually went up to the meet and greet ahead of everybody else and grabbed the name tags. And there were several spells wrong. Gordon Mosier, sorry Gordon, I'm bringing this up. His name Gorson. But they just sat in a corner. I actually socialized, and if anybody who knows me, I'm not the sociable one. And then the next morning, well, overnight, a few of them went drinking. One guy thought he lost his wallet, but he just had it in his jacket pocket. This happened. He had this conversation several times when he got back. The next morning, I heard this coffee mug, and I went downstairs in the hotel, grabbed my coffee, got breakfast, and then I can't remember, but I know we got to the conference, and there was a session of talks, and then there was at least one coffee break. I left my overheads sitting on a folder on the table, which nobody noticed. And when I came back, there were two professors there talking. One was sitting right on the overheads. And actually smeared the ink. And my talk was coming up in the next session, so I found a pen and corrected what I could. Then got up in front of maybe 100 to 200 people in this big auditorium style classroom. And if people don't know, there are several styles of classrooms in universities. There's like the regular sized classrooms you see everywhere, and then there's like big auditoriums for big first and second year classes, or big classes in general. And I got up in front of one of these, and my talk was basically, there was a book from Stephen Hawking called A Brief History of Time, and it was about black holes and stuff. I just kind of did a little report on it just to get over nerves. And so I got up front and said, "Oh, sorry for the overheads. Somebody sat on them, so they're a little smeared." And everybody laughed, and actually that chilled everybody out a little bit. The only thing I noticed was where most of the group from my university was supposed to be, there was a big gap in the seats. They moved up to the top because they didn't want to be there any longer, because the president did her talk, and she wanted to go out into the city for a while, and so did some others, but they stayed enough to listen to my talk. And after I did my talk with questions and answers, I did fairly well on it. And then came the evening. I actually showed up for most of the My view is, if you're going to go to one of these things, you should show up for most of it, because you don't know what you're going to be there. Like there, they had a professor from Louisiana talking about LIGO, which is that big gravity wave detector, and this was before, I don't know if they were building it at the time or just before they started building it. So there was that talk, and then in the evening there was a dinner, banquet or buffet thing, and while we were waiting it turned out to be a buffet, but while we were waiting, one person in our group started playing with the spoons, like sticking them to her face, just goofy stuff. And another guy decided to wash his grapes in some water, and the dinner happened. And then there was a talk, an astronomy talk, from an astronomy professor at a conference that had astronomy in it, a university that had an astronomy department. And then after the dinner, I got in the elevator with a couple of them and said, "Oh my God, they were playing with their food, or they were playing with the spoons." And just imagine having an astronomy talk at an astronomy conference. Nobody really wants to listen to that here. And then the next morning came, so people did their talks, and then we were supposed to go to the hotel, pick a group of them up, and come back. And here's the thing, this conference actually had prizes, which is just books or gift certificates. And there was a group from one university that did their presentation on PowerPoint. This is like the first time they used PowerPoint. And this is like, oh my God, yeah, of course they won because they use computers. And so after all this, back in the early thing is some of these people chose vegetarian meals, but on the way we stopped at a Burger King. And me and one guy in the back of one in the rental car was just quiet all the way home. Then we got back. I got dropped off at my apartment, but I wanted to go sort through some notes. I sorted through the notes, and the president and her boyfriend comes in, and okay, I yelled. I just got sick of the attitude with her, and for the next 2 days I was grumpy. And then I think the borderline prick came in and was like, this person should shut up. They know what they're going for. I was like, okay. But the funny thing is what her research was on was scanning lobster used at MRI machines, and she didn't code any of the code herself. So when her presentation got up for her honors thesis at the end of the term, a few of us actually had that issue. And the other guy, who was doing fiber optic research and how fiber optics can be used to detect radiation, I think. And he had this idea that maybe someday you could have like a little patch with a bunch of fiber optics rolled up in your chest, rolled up in a chest pocket to detect radiation. I don't know if that ever, but they automatically gave him a C because of that, and she got her honors. I have issues with this, but okay. The other side of the mug, actually, there's some symbols in there. There's 8 stars, if you can't make it out, of Cygnus, and the computer core at the astronomy dorm was called Cygnus because it had 8 processors. Nowadays, my computer has 10 processors. Okay, now we're going to go to. Okay. To Austin Whitsitt. And Whitsitt is a flat earther. And if you haven't heard, in December they had the final experiment. Wow. Whitsitt had to call it the first expedition because Whitsitt has to be Whitsitt. Whitsitt was taken along as a security blanket for what happened before they left. Was there was a guy named Will Duffy who was a pastor out in Colorado, and he was sick and tired of the flat Earth debate. So what he did was came up with a name of 24 flat earthers, 24 debunkers, or globists, or real people, and people had a choice of voting for one of each of these lists to get a free trip to Antarctica. All the others were free to come if they got funding for themselves. And the one that won on the flat Earth side was a guy named Jaron, from a website called Jaronism. Okay, Jaron eventually flipped to the globe after the final experiment. Whitsitt was brought along because Jaron didn't feel safe going alone. So Whitsitt was basically a security blanket, or the world's most expensive luggage, as some people call them, because it costs $40,000 for each person to go down there. Plus, Whitsitt asked for his mother-in-law to be flown into his place to help with babysitting and stuff with his kids, and some extra money too. Plus, before you go down to Antarctica, you have to go to Punta Arenas, in the southern part of Chile, and that's where they check out if you have all your gear, and you stay there for a couple of days to get everything sorted out. And he thought he was just going to go get the backpack and get a dress rope and put it in the backpack. No, that's not how it works. They don't sell those at the local army surplus store or the mall. But this is actually a talk that a little thing he gave before he went to Antarctica. On the regular person side, there was a guy named Dave McKeegan, who was a photographer out of England or Scotland, and he just got married last week. Well, officially got married last week. Pretty good for you, Dave. and there was a guy named Michael Toon, or MC Toon. The C doesn't stand for anything. It's something he made up for a joke in college. And, excuse me, he fundraised, and somebody else, a guy that goes by the name of Globeface, gave him Globeface tried to raise his own money but couldn't make it. So he gave some of the money, gave most of the money to MC Toon after he talked to the people in his channel about donating the money to Toon. And there's also a guy named Critical Think out of Australia who got all his own funding, and I think he's a geological physicist or something like that. And you had Will Duffy, and you had and Jaron, and you had another. You had a woman called Elizabeth. Elizabeth got there because somebody pulled a prank. They told her that they were going to fund her, and then said, nope, it's just a joke. So somebody else got the money together for her to go. She actually turned out to be one of the most useful members of the group for what I hear, because she actually spoke Spanish and could talk to some of the people locally in Chile. But so we're going to listen to this about what's its impression of before he goes, and talk about some of what's its general things. I don't know how long this is going to take. I remember watching it and taking a couple hours because I was watching it with listening to what's Craig McNeil's kind of comments about it. Oh yeah, what's it's full of himself. And okay, just look at the background behind him because he says he's humble. Okay, you see that these people had trackers with them, just so you could know where they were. And actually also led to one of the most tracked air flights between Chile and Antarctica. But Toon and Will Duffy were down there because they had to set a few things up ahead of time and take care of things. Nothing really suspicious. Uh, okay, one thing you notice about flat earthers, they call them McToon, and that's how he knows that a person's a flat earther, is because they call them McToon, and it's actually Michael Toon. But look at the background. That sofa, somebody actually figured out that sofa's worth a few $1,000. And that big sign on the back, yeah, that crate that says humble. But we'll just let him go. And MC2 did a fundraiser. He did a streamathon. He oh, I think it was not Thanksgiving weekend. Well, one weekend he kept thinking he streamed all weekend, plus his wife does crochet work, and she did the she crocheted and sewed some things, and it was a number of different channels of income to fund this. Plus some of it was his own money. His account, his not PayPal, but Bitcoin wallet got hit. People suspect the reason it got hit is because there's a flat Earth app that's run by the guy named Dave Weiss. He didn't do any of the programming or anything. He just hired people to do the programming. But a few weeks before this, it was found out that you could get everybody's credentials and passwords and stuff out of it pretty easily. They didn't really set it up that securely. So that's probably why his Bitcoin got hit. It's because of another flat earther. And we'll let him go. He had about 6 months to prepare for this, and he's been streaming and stuff for years, so we don't know where the money goes. Plus, lately he's been asking for more money. We suspect it's actually for a divorce. Not 100% sure, but one of the nicknames he's gotten lately is What's It Spits It, because his wife charged him with spitting on her because their child was acting up. if your livelihood depends on your computer, maybe you should have sold your computer. Well, we'll let him go on. Okay, while this was going on, we actually listened and we could see in the chats. The way YouTube works is you get 500 subscribers and 3,000 hours of people viewing your material. You can start monetizing your account and ask for like super chats and memberships, and after so much you can get adding revenue. There's only like 4 or 5 people giving like $20. There's some people like MC Doon or Craig McNeil or Dave McKeegan or other on the other side who actually get like $2 or $3, get lots of like $2 or $3 super chats and memberships. So just to put that in a little bit of perspective. I'm not getting paid for the sand. He is. And no, I'm not going to hit the like button. Yeah, I sped it up. When they got there, they did have Starlink set up. We told it took 18 hours for him to get the password. It took him maybe 2 hours. And people saw him online within 2 hours of them getting it. Okay, some more background of why they went to Antarctica. Some of the flat earthers said there was a big ice wall around the Earth, and this was Antarctica, and you couldn't go past the ice wall. Um, there's bases all over Antarctica, and people have flown over it, people have walked across it, people have skied across it. It's semi-explored. And sunsets prove the Earth is not a flat because or round, is because proof it's round because if it was flat, and one way they think the sun sets is it just goes further and further away until it becomes a point. But the thing is that you'd always still see the sun. The only way you could see the sun is if something blocks it, like the Earth. So, yeah, pretty much about 95% of humanity knows this, or hopefully more, knows this is BS. But it's usually an indication of believing in this guy. I've seen some other things that he's posted and heard from him, and some of these guys are pretty much in love with a certain German political leader in the 30s, and they're at his party. So let it go on. It was documented many times, several times before, and actually, what didn't get documented was him trying to pull something over people's eyes. They went to a place, Union Glacier. For some reason, I want to say Union Station, but Union Glacier, which is a big flat plain. It's not quite at the South Pole, but it's in Antarctica. And they had about 10 cameras set up, and they had a laptop set up. And he was talking to some of his people on a live stream, and then they said, "Why can't you see your breath because it's so cold?" The thing is, the air is so dry down there. There's not enough moisture to create that mist that you get when you have a cool air. But he went into, like, there was a little camp set up with containers, and he went in and he got a vape. And he ducked down and took a vape and got up and puffed it. And he got caught vaping. I think his wife also didn't want him vaping. It's one of those things, you know you're on camera. You know there's about 10 or 12 cameras around you at all times taking 360 images. This may not be a good time to try to sneak a vape. But yeah, but he ended up being caught up in more lies than anybody else. What they're talking about with the radar beams is the battle of the beams. Germany set up a system where they set up like one tower in one city and another tower in another city, and where they crossed in England, that's where they were supposed to bomb. But radio waves do diffract or refract around in the atmosphere a bit, so they could work in an atmosphere. Plus, they kind of spread out the further away you are from the source. So that also helped it go around the curve of the Earth. If I was a creator and this was my creation, I would go, where did I go wrong? If there was a creator who gave you enough brains to figure out the truth, and like, here's the thing, we have images of the Earth, we have plenty of evidence that the Earth is round. But for some reason you don't want to believe it. That's fine. The problem is you're trying to spread the information to other people. About going into people's personal life, here's the thing. They do it too. They kind of do it. I don't know if they did it first or not, but they make up all kinds of allegations against people. I once watched an MC2 podcast debate that only lasted minutes because somebody used the word that starts with the letter P. For a lover of children, and that was it. So they, and calling, plus they go after NASA because there's a guy in the 40s who worked for JPL. JPL started just outside of Berkeley, around Pasadena. It started in the desert, and there was a small group of people who did it. One of the guys who was there was a member of an alternate church. Yeah, it was the dark side kind of church. And he was friends with a guy named Crawley, who was probably not a nice guy. But NASA didn't start until 56 or 58. The guy who was working at JPL was dead by 52. So he had nothing to do with the start of NASA. So it's they tell tales too, and they just make stuff up. No, we don't want to hear from O'Leary. Okay, there's a guy that calls himself Professor Day. He is actually taught at universities in California, so he earned the right to call himself professor. And he teaches others. He teaches a lot of basic other stuff for science classes for high school and university. So he actually had a channel before Flat Earth. Yeah, some of the biggest videos are about Flat Earth because they want to laugh. Some people want to laugh at the Flat Earthers. MC2 is actually a computer programmer doing security stuff on emails and on the internet and stuff like that. Craig McNeil, okay, he's probably making a bit more money, but he's on disability from the UK Navy. He had a shoulder injury, and then, well, they were all on medication for that. He didn't realize his knee was hurting during a marathon and did damage to his knee. And now trying to get his leg amputated because of that. But yes, he's made some money doing flat earth debates and arguing online. Some of his style is a little over the top for me, but some people like it. Dave McKeegan, he's a photographer. He's probably making a decent life beforehand. He's probably making a little bit more money now. So a lot of the people on the other side have careers and jobs before this, and this is not how they're making the money. Most of the flat earthers are making their money directly from flat earth, and that's their only source of income, such as Whitsitt. And the thing with Whitsitt is he's kind of been disowned from the flat earth community since then. So is Jaron, but Jaron left now. He's like the invention angel, or reformed. You know how reformed smokers or alcoholics can be a little overzealous? That's Jaronism right now. Okay, it's 40,000 per person. So there's 40,000 for Real Duffy. There's 40,000 for Jaronism. There's 40,000 for Whitsitt. There's Keegan, MC Tune, and Critical Thing. Critical Thing. So that's $240,000 plus some other things like the Starlink and some other supplies. So maybe 260, 270, a little bit off from a half million. And most people didn't hear about it. Yeah, there was another. Oh, yeah, there was another guy. I don't know who's doing it. Jonathan's something. Who's doing a documentary that's supposed to come out soon. And actually, on David Keegan's channel a few weeks ago, he's for the producers from California. He actually traveled to David Keegan's house to do some material, and they actually chatted. And they actually seem like a good guy. But yeah, a lot of these people on both sides probably get along on most stuff. It's just for some reason some people have to the earth is flat and the earth is centered around us, and that's the way the universe is. And they do a lot of scheming, lying, plotting to try to convince people. Sorry for the ads. This is actually a pain. What's it? Yeah, if you were really truthful, you probably would be much louder. And that's it for that one. Maybe we'll do one or two more videos from there. Okay. What should we do it? Or the one from the Antarctic? Okay, I know it's an unusual time of the day to do this, but I'm trying to give other people, there's other people who've established their time slots kind of thing. Plus this afternoon, Mikey Smith is going to go to a football game and do a country music concert to try and do his activism. And so that'll probably take up most of this evening. So we're going to do this for a little bit longer than I should be doing other stuff. So we'll go through a little bit more. See when to quit. Just play it by ear when to quit. The thing is about when they were down there, MC Dude's from Minnesota. His wife had to be alone in Minnesota, and it was like in the minuses in Fahrenheit, which is some ridiculous. I don't know. Okay. 27. I think he's referred to 27 Fahrenheit. That's just a few degrees below zero in Celsius, and most Canadians that's fall. So, and he is from Florida, so they're used to warmer temperatures. Okay. These ones. I'm good because I know they Let's try. To another guy already, but let me do a little. Oh yeah, before there was the final experiment, there was another challenge. This is 747 crew. He explains how behind the scenes of the airline industry, and he actually had this challenge before the final experiment. Seven 4-7 gear, sorry. Yeah, he didn't say he was organizing it, but let's go. Let's try this one. This is a flat earther. Excuse me. produce a lot of material. And it's easier to produce this material than it is actual factual material, because you have to look up things for the fact side. Just spout off whatever you want. Yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna go down the detour. I'm saying I may have ADHD. No. It's just one thing leads to another. I know he had some weird stuff about Antarctica. Sorry for all the dead air. I know you're supposed to keep talking, but I'm trying to look off stuff here. Maybe Nathan will put it easier to find. He's known to have quite the foul mouth. Oh yeah, a lot of the flat earthers also believe we never went to the moon because we went to the moon. Therefore, they have pictures of the Earth that's round, and they don't think space is real. And they think that NASA is some kind of secret organization trying to control the world. Okay. Don't know what. I think this is more of a normal video. exciting. Eric Bay is another one, the Thirst Leaders. Okay, what does he say about the Flat Earth Bakery? Final experiment bakery. The problem is you actually have to have a fairly big one, and plus they flew in, and they all agree they flew into Antarctica, so it wasn't a studio. I'm trying to find, because they have some, I know one of these guys claimed that there's an ice wall. Just so many different videos go through. "200 proofs. This is today's masterpiece." This is because you're actually looking at a very small chunk of the Earth, but I'm trying to find certain section. Just give me a minute. Let's see what this is supposed to be. It doesn't go larger and larger, it goes smaller and smaller, like the northern hemisphere. I don't know about that, but I doubt it's real. Maybe their calculations are all off. Now let's see. Well, flights like this, there's other reasons for flights like this not to exist. Some of it is just that they like having a backup airport or an airport nearby where they can land in case of emergency, and there's nothing right over them in the middle of Antarctica for them to land for parts of the year. And plus, it's also economic reasons, such as they go from Chile to Brazil or to Spain and then back down because they can pick up people on the way, more people on the way, or some people from Chile can go to London, England instead of going. So it makes more economic sense than it is to go directly over the pole. Plus, flights go in a great circle route or a circular route because it's actually a better distance and easier to fly than trying to fly directly over the South Pole. See, they make a claim of the ice wall in 360 degrees. You see what I mean? You can go from Chile up to North America instead. And some of these places will go through North America and then they go back down through Australia. Plus there are flights that go like this too. They just don't report everything. Kind of sneaky. Reason for this, okay, part of Africa is actually north of the equator, so during our summer they're in the summer, so they can have really warm summers in parts of Africa. Plus the thing is ice has a lot of reserve capacitance of heat. It keeps a lot of the cold in a large mass of cold of ice would keep more cold there. So it takes a lot more heat to thaw it out. So that's why even during the Antarctic summer, it takes a lot to heat up Antarctica. It's not just the distance, it's also the angle that it hits it on. If it hits it on a more direct angle, more sunlight can warm it up. If it's a more indirect angle, the light cone turns into a bit of a cone, and the heat spread out over more of an area. Antarctica is actually a continent. It has a large rocky base to it, and so it's quite a bit different than the Arctic. The Arctic is just an ocean that freezes over during the winter, so there's quite a bit difference between the two. Actually, yeah, there's been giant ice shelves that have been melting off the Antarctic, but it's also one big piece of ice, and there's less precipitation in the Antarctic compared to the Arctic. The Antarctic is actually considered a desert because there's so little snowfall or rainfall. Okay, let's look up where the Isle of Georgia is. I think I know why there's so little life there. Wikipedia, South Georgia. Yeah, South Georgia. Because if it's isolated, it means it's harder for life to get there. Norway is somewhat isolated, but is still fairly close to North America and to Iceland. Plus, there actually were explorers to Greenland just about 1,000 years ago called the Vikings. It was isolated. Yeah, it looks like it's very isolated. It's right there. So yeah. So you look at Greenland, you can see Iceland a bit closer than anything to Georgia Island. Plus you have Baffin Island up here. Plus, it also depends on how areas are formed. Some places are formed, they separate from continents, like Greenland and parts of North America and Europe were all smashed up close to one another at one time. And Georgia Island could be a relatively new island in the south that just is a volcanic island and hasn't had time to really get life on, except for penguins. And maybe the penguins have seeded the island with a few life forms, but not much. And some other birds have done the same. Okay, we'll go back to today and a couple more first points. absolutely not. Okay, I'll call it there for the day. Everybody have a good day and goodbye.